Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this class where we are getting introduced to listening skill. Language learning is basically a skill that has to be mastered with constant exposition to the language, number one, practicing it meticulously, number two, and mastering its skills of number one, listening, then speaking, then reading, and then writing. L, S, R, and W. Listening and reading are called as the passive skills, while speaking and writing are called as the active skills. Though much goes into listening and reading, and unless and otherwise we are good listeners, we cannot become good speakers. Unless and otherwise we are good readers, we cannot become good writers. Still, listening and reading are considered to be passive skills because they are intrapersonal communication to the self. Only the person who listens to the text or the person who is reading the text can understand how much he or she is understanding. Whereas speaking and writing are called as the active skills because they are interpersonal communication that is going on. Unless and otherwise you are a poet, speaking normally is being observed between more than one person, two or more people. Similarly, is writing. A person writes in order to see that the others would read the text and understand it. So, speaking and writing are interpersonal, where the person who is using the skill is involved and interacting with him or her would be the other persons. Whereas for listening and reading, it is only the individual who knows how much he or she listens and understands, reads and comprehends. Hence, listening and reading are intrapersonal communication within the self, so they are passive skills. While speaking and writing are interpersonal communication between two people or more than two people, and hence they are called as the active skills. Thus, fluency of speech in any language depends upon LSRW. First, we are supposed to listen the language and understand it. The ears will catch the sound waves that are produced by the other person while speaking and sends it to the brain. The brain decodes it, understands it, and then comes down to the body language that, yes, that's right. Yes, I understand. Or maybe if somebody doesn't understand, comes out with the oral cavity and uses the language and speaks by telling, I'm sorry, I don't get your point. I'm sorry, could you please repeat? So listening automatically will be followed by speaking. Either you say, yes, I understand, or you say, maybe a clarification is required. So listening followed by speaking. And then comes reading. The moment we identify the letters of the language, then comes the reading skill. And after the reading and the reading comprehension, the last of all the skills that comes out is what is called as writing. So it's always listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Don't you think that is how we have picked up our mother tongue? We listen to the elders, we listen to the parents, we listen to the various people in the surrounding using the language as a child. And the child is continuously exposed to the language that is used by various people around him. He listens to them. Slowly, 6 months to 1 year after, he starts producing the sounds which are slightly similar to that of what he has listened or she has listened. And then the speaking skill is slowly developed. Then comes writing, and then comes reading. The listening is the first activity that a learner is exposed to when he or she is placed in a language environment. Poor listening may lead to misunderstandings and arguments among people. Listening and hearing are the two interesting activities that can be observed in this. Hearing is an involuntary activity. If a musical band is playing on the street, you automatically hear it. If the radio is on and the music is playing, you automatically hear it. It's an involuntary activity. You automatically hear so many sounds from nature. But listening is a voluntary activity with three stages. Number one, carefully we'll have to hear. Number two, the processing takes place within the mind. And then the evaluation takes place so that a proper understanding of whatever is being said is being observed. So there is a difference between listening and hearing. Hearing is an involuntary activity and listening is a voluntary activity. What is expected in the classroom is that the students would be carefully listening to whatever the teacher is said. This is what exactly automatically happens when we are in a movie theater. Not even a single dialogue goes ununderstood. Not even a single dialogue goes unheard. That's because carefully we'll be hearing, thereby making the hearing into listening for comprehension. If we try to understand the subskills of listening, number one is the identifying the sounds of a language. And hence, for the learning of a language, it is the sounds with which we start learning it. It's not with grammar and grammatical concepts, it is not with tenses, it is not with verbs, but it is with the sounds of a language that we have to start learning a language with. So, phonetics and the phonology of the language would be the very first step of learning a language, which is also the first subskill of learning. These sounds, for example, in English, of the 26 letters that we have in English, we have 44 sounds, of which 20 are called as pure vowels and 24 are called as the consonants. Of the 20 vowels, we have 12 pure vowels or monophthongs and 8 diphthongs or dvivakshar. A careful understanding of all these sounds in terms of vowels, in terms of diphthongs, in terms of consonants, semivowels is a must in order to produce the sounds properly, or if somebody produces these sounds, to understand them in a more effective way. Now, these sounds in turn combine to form the syntactic units like words, phrases, clauses, and sentences. A good listener not only identifies and comprehends the words and sentences of the language, but also interprets the stress, rhythm, and intonation, which are the supra-segmental features of the language. English is a stress-timed language, as we have said, and giving stress to the words is a permanent property of the word, which can be denoted with a small apostrophe above and in front of the stressed sound shown in a dictionary. So the pronunciation of each word with the appropriate stress is a must. And then in order to maintain the rhythm of the language, these stressed words or the unstressed words would be reduced to their respective weak forms. Normally, the grammatical words are reduced to their weak forms. Grammatical words which are used for the completion of the sentences from the grammar point of view or syntax point of view, like articles, prepositions, conjunctions, helping verbs, and pronouns. These five categories are definitely reduced to their respective weak forms in order to maintain the characteristic rhythm and music of English language. Whereas the content words like the nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, along with demonstrative pronouns like this, that, these, those, and interrogative pronouns like whom, whose, whom, what, which, that, etc., are given stress. By stress, we mean a greater breath force in order to pronounce this particular syllable. So we need to bear in mind the appropriate stress and rhythm, and not only that, we need also to understand the intonation of the language. By intonation, we mean the stress, the phenomena of stress that is applied to the pronunciation of sentences. If stress is a characteristic feature of the words, intonation is a characteristic feature of the pronunciation of sentences. When we utter the sentences, different varieties of sentences like the assertive sentences or declarative sentences, interrogative sentences. In interrogatives, we have the yes no type of sentences, WH type of sentences, question tags. Then we have the commands, requests, exclamations, enumeration of things, alternatives that we provide while speaking, and so on and so forth. Depending upon the type of sentence that we are uttering, we automatically have to give a proper intonation. And by intonation, we mean either the fall or the rise, or sometimes the fall rise of our tone. The moment the sentence comes to a stop and is kept a full stop, automatically you fall down. Like, we are the students of Yashwant Mahavidyalaya Nanded. You fall down. You will not say, we are the students of Yashwant Mahavidyalaya Nanded. You will not raise up. The moment we raise up, it looks like a question. and not like an answer. So almost 80% of sentences that we utter in speaking are declarative or assertive type of sentences, and they are kept or with a falling tone. They are uttered with a falling tone. And similarly, the WH type of sentences, which are matter of fact way, are also given the falling tone. What is your name? Where are you going? Why are you late? You fall down. Then similarly, for the commands, we fall down. Stop there. Don't talk. Close the door. Fall down. So when you're falling down, it would mean that it is a command. And then even for exclamations, many a times we fall down. Wow. Fall down. What a pretty dress. Excellent. We fall down. So for normal sentences, WH type of sentences, commands, exclamations, and the question tags when you normally expect a positive feedback from the listener, or when you expect the listener to agree with you, they receive the falling tone. And where do you think that you have to give the rising tone? Normally, the rising tone is given to the incomplete utterances. By incomplete utterances, we mean that the sentence is quite big. We'll have to take pauses in the middle of the sentence. And whenever we take the pause in the middle of the sentence, we give a rising tone, not a falling tone. The moment we give a falling tone, it looks as if the sentence is complete. So for the incomplete utterances, which normally are the cues that you get from phrases, clausal analysis, sometimes the bigger group of words that are uttered, all this knowledge will enable us to understand as to where we need to stop and where we need to pause. Whenever we are pausing in an utterance, in an expression, automatically it is a rising tone. If you ring the bell, you've taken a pause because of the completion of the adverb clause. The main clause is, he will come. When you say come, you fall down because the sentence comes to an end and is kept a full stop there. Though we studied hard, rising, we got very less marks, falling. So the most interesting way in which the rising tone is given is the incomplete utterances. And then WH type of sentences with a warm and friendly, affectionate expression also will receive the rising tone. What is your name? If you fall down, it's a matter of fact way. A teacher asking a student, a stranger asking a stranger. But when I say, what is your name? Name, what is your name, child? You automatically raise up because there is an element of emotional attachment with the speaker. So, WH type of sentences with warm and affectionate feeling will receive the rising tone. Similarly, the yes no type of sentences will receive the rising tone. Are you coming tomorrow? Did you understand? So, all yes no type of sentences will receive the rising tone. Similarly, when commands take up the falling tone, requests will take up the rising tone. When I say stop talking, falling down, it's an order from the teacher to the students. But when I say stop talking, it's a sort of request by the class monitor to the entire class. So the request will take up the rising tone and the commands will take up the falling tone. Similarly, when you are counting the things, enumeration of things, many a times we need to count the things. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The last counted one will receive the falling tone, and the earlier ones will receive the rising tone. Alternative questions that you are providing whenever you are speaking to others. Would you like to have some tea? Raise up. Coffee? Raise up. Or milk? The last alternative that you are providing will fall down. So intonation is a very, very interesting phenomena that we have to maintain while using a language, which normally we don't, and that is one of the reasons why the native speakers cannot understand our English. We have to maintain stress, show the rhythm, reduce the sounds into weak forms, and maintain intonation in our expressions. And that's the very first sub skill of listening. Number one, to identify the sounds. Number two, how these sounds are grouped into words, phrases, and clauses and sentences. And number three, to understand the suprasegmental features like stress, intonation, weak forms, and the appropriate toning that you'll have to maintain while speaking. The second sub skill of listening is Identify the information or the gist that is conveyed by the message. Many a times we tend to understand what exactly the speaker says, but we don't exactly get what the speaker is trying to tell. Meet me at the bank tomorrow. If somebody says, oh, this is a very simple sentence, meet me at the bank tomorrow. A grammar teacher like me would say meet is a verb, me is a pronoun, at the bank is a prepositional phrase beginning with the preposition at, the is article, bank is noun. Tomorrow is an adverb of time. Very nice. Grammar point of view, language point of view, you have understood everything. But there is an element of ambiguity in this expression, don't you think? Meet me at the bank tomorrow. When we are staying in a place like Nanded, which is on the banks of River Godavari, which bank? The river bank or the commercial institution where give and take of money takes place is the question. So the gist or the exact meaning that the speaker wanted to communicate is not communicated here in spite of the fact that you have understood every sound and every word of the expression. Similarly are the words, the police shot them or the police shot the terrorists. Now, even this sentence looks very simple. The police is the subject. Shoot, shot is the past tense. It's a transitive verb. So it takes its object as the terrorists. Grammar point of view, we have understood everything. But shoot is a verb that has got two meanings. One is shooting with the help of a camera, and the other is shooting with the help of a rifle. So, did the police shoot the terrorist dead, or did the police shoot the terrorist with a camera? Is the confusion. So, many a times this information is lost, and we end up not following what exactly the speaker has said. Developing good listening would mean that you number one, don't speak with any ambiguity. Number two, identify all ambiguous meanings that are expressed so that you will not have any problem in understanding the gist or the information that is conveyed by the speaker. Second subskill is to understand the information completely. Number third subskill is identification of emotional and attitudinal tone of the speaker. This is very important. No grammar text will talk about it. Supposing the person is suffering from a headache and A is suffering from headache and B comes to A and says, come on, let's go to the college. And A says, if you insist, and stops. Now, if you insist would mean that I don't want to come. Why? Because he is already, pressing his, knuckles. He's pressing his knuckles or forehead, telling that he is suffering from headache. Looking at all these things, the only word that he has uttered is if you insist. Now, if you insist, actually, grammatical point of view is an incomplete sentence. It would say, I will come if you insist. I will not come if you insist. I don't want to come, but if you insist, I will come. It has got so many expressions. Now, a proper understanding of the language would mean that these emotional and attitudinal tone of the speaker also is to be understood. Another interesting example that we can say, what is your name? Calling tone, matter of fact way, asking or inquiring the name. What is your name? Has got an emotional attachment. Oh child, what is your name? Let me know your name. So this type of nuances and the differences of the expressions are to be understood when you say that you are learning a language. Similarly, the fourth subskill of listening is casual listening and focused listening. There are two types of listening. Casual listening is very passive and refers to the listening without any particular purpose. Many a times it happens with the students that they are making their assignments and simultaneously listening to the songs. Or the TV is on and you are making your projects. Such type of listening is called as the casual type of listening. Another way of listening is focused listening, which is very active and it has got a purpose of understanding the things. In a classroom or in a lecture like this, what we expect is not casual listening, but what we expect is a focused listening. Now, how can these subskills be developed? There are a few techniques to develop this listening comprehension. Number one is listening to the teacher and responding. That's a very normal way of developing the listening skill. Listen to the lecture very carefully from A to Z and respond whenever the teacher asks the questions. Number two, listening to the newspaper that is read out, the news that is read out by the newspaper or by a TV anchor or by a radio news reader, and try to understand, try to make note as to what exactly are the head points, and among each point, what sub points could be noted down. So, listening to the news that is read out from the newspaper, by TV anchor, or a news reader from radio is the second way of developing the comprehension. A third way of developing listening comprehension is to the recorded tape and responding. Now, this is what exactly we do in the language laboratories, where already pre-recorded tapes or pre-recorded soft copy is there loaded in the computer. What the students do is sit in the language lab, put on the headphones, and start listening to them. Start listening till they understand. In the first attempt, maybe they would not understand the accent part of it, intonation part of it, pronunciation of many sounds. So they listen to it for the second time, and then the third time, and then they start responding. Fourth or fifth time onwards, they start speaking exactly, or they try to imitate the speech of the recorded tape and try to pronounce the sounds exactly the same. Then, listening to the stories is one beautiful way of developing the listening comprehension. Listening to the conversations, listening to tables, news items, passages, all these are some wonderful ways of developing the listening comprehension. Or maybe a story is said without any ending, or maybe an anecdote is said without any ending, and the ending is to be guessed by the listener. So you have to listen to the anecdote or the story very carefully from the beginning till the middle, and then you can suggest a suitable title to it, or you can end the story in a proper way or anecdote in a proper way. In a class of say 20, maybe we could have 20 different alternative endings also for a similar story or an anecdote. This is a very beautiful way of developing the listening skills. Let us follow some of the techniques that are useful for us to develop the listening skill. The number one technique that I can think of to start developing the listening skill is um, pronouncing the tongue twisters. These are some very beautiful ways of polishing the sounds and pronouncing the sounds in an appropriate way. Look at the slide. I've incorporated a small tongue twister there on seashells. This tongue twister is helpful for us when practiced well to differentiate between s and sh, which most of the students have the problem of pronunciation. She sells seashells at the seashore. If she sells seashells at the seashore, where are the seashells she sells at the seashore? Could you make out? Read it again a bit slow. She sells seashells at the seashore. If she sells seashells at the seashore, where are the seashells she sells at the seashore? Got it? These are some beautiful ways in which you can train your ears rather for various sounds. And similarly, you have this tongue twister. Bitter butter. Betty bought a bar of butter. Butter Betty bought was bitter. So Betty beat a bit of bitter but to make the bitter butter better. Enjoyed it? Go a bit slow. Betty bought a bar of butter. But the butter Betty bought was bitter. So Betty beat a bit of butter to make the bitter butter better. So such type of tongue twisters definitely help us to increase or improve the pronunciation of b sound, t sound, and the silent r sound in the end of the word. Look at this. Can you say it? Try it. Through 3 cheese trees, 3 free fleas flew. While these fleas flew, freezy breeze blew. Freezy breeze made these 3 trees freeze. Freezy trees made these trees cheese freeze. That's what made these 3 free fleas sneeze. The E sound is practiced with such type of tongue twisters. Look at this. Just say it. How much wood would woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? He would as much as he could and chuck as much wood as a woodchuck would if a woodchuck could chuck wood. Very interesting. Try and practice it, look into it, and then start pronouncing it. And slowly try to understand what it is trying to say, because each tongue twister also tries to say some story to you. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck? If a woodchuck could chuck wood, he would as much as he could, and chuck as much wood as a woodchuck would if a woodchuck could chuck wood. So ch sound and v sound are pronounced and are differentiated very beautifully here. How about saying this? Chuck's job was to chop chips. Chuck was a chip chopper. In fact, he was the top chip chopper. The chips were shipped to the chip chopping shop and Chuck chopped the chips. The chip chopping shop also had a chip checker. He checked the chips Chuck chopped. Could you understand it? You'll have to pronounce it for your pronunciation part, and you also have to understand what exactly has been said. Chuck's job was to chop chips. Chopping is to cut. Chips is potato chips or something. So Chuck is the name. Chuck's job was to chop chips. Chuck was a chip chopper. In fact, he was the top chip chopper. The chips were shipped to the chip chopping shop and Chuck chopped the chips. The chip chopping shop had a chip checker. He checked the chips that are chopped by Chuck. Did you understand? Yes. If you go a bit slow, maybe your pronunciation also improves and your understanding also improves. What is important is your understanding here. That is how you can improve your listening skill. See this wish. It's a wonderful wish. I wish to wish the wish you wish to wish. But if you wish the which wishes, I won't wish the wish you wish to wish. Understand the meaning of it. Wish is used as a verb, wish is used as a noun as well. And wish is mixed with which also in the tongue twister. Now, this is very beautiful. Say along with me. Okay. This is the house that Jack built. This is the cheese that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the rat that ate the cheese that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cat that worried the rat that ate the cheese that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the dog that chased the cat that worried the rat that ate the cheese that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cow with the crumpled horn that tossed the dog that chased the cat that worried the rat that ate the cheese that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the maiden all forlorn that milked the cow with the crumpled horn, that tossed the dog that chased the cat that worried the rat that ate the cheese that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the man all tattered and torn, that kissed the maiden all forlorn, that milked the cow with crumpled horn, that tossed the dog that chased the cat that worried the rat that ate the cheese that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the judge all shaven and shorn that married the man all tattered and torn, that kissed the maiden all forlorn, that milked the cow with the crumpled horn, that tossed the dog that chased the cat that worried the rat that ate the cheese that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the rooster that crowed in the morn, that woke the judge all shove and shorn, that married the man all tattered and torn, kissed the maiden all forlorn, that milked the cow with crumpled horn, that tossed the dog that chased the cat that worried the rat that ate the cheese that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the farmer that planted the corn, that fed the rooster, that crowed the morn, that woke the judge all shaven and shorn, that married the man all tattered and torn, that kissed the maiden all forlorn, that milked the cow with crumpled horn, that tossed the dog, that chased the cat, that worried the rat, that ate the cheese, that lay in the house that Jack built. Every sentence has an added noun phrase. So it is too many relative clauses that are attached to the noun phrases, and at the same time, pronunciation of it and appropriate intonation is important. Equally important is the understanding of its meaning part of it. Could you understand the meaning? Slowly try to decode it. slowly try to read them and then make it faster so that you could understand it. If tongue twisters are the first important things to train your listening comprehension, the other listening technique is to identify the right one, like the fill in the blanks. In each sentence are given you two words, which has the same pronunciation but has got different meanings. So try and understand as to which word would fit into the line. The dash of France are famous. Vines, wines, and wines, wines. Vines, wines are the grape wines, the grapeyards, and wines, wines are the hot drinks. Now, in this sentence, the wines of France are very famous. That's right. It is very famous for the grape wines. And the wines of France are very famous. That's right. The wine that is made in France are very famous from the wines. So both would be applied with a different meaning. The dash coat is expensive. Waist, Waist. The pronunciation of both is the same, but here Waist would be more appropriate. The dash bleats loudly. Ship, Sheep, sheep. And in this example, the sheep bleats loudly. Maintain the pronunciation between ship and sheep. Ship, you've got a shorter vowel, and sheep, you've got a longer vowel. Now, these vowels which have the shorter as well as the longer counterparts are to be practiced very well and maintained well in your speech so that the appropriate word is being understood by your listener. And when somebody makes these sounds, you should be in a position to follow. The dash injured him severely. Hit, hit, to beat somebody. Heat, heat, the heat of the sun or whatever. Now, surprisingly, both the words can fit it with a different meaning, of course. The hit injured him severely. Somebody hit him and that has injured him severely. Yes, it is right. The heat injured him severely because of the sun heat, extreme heat in the summers. The dash speed is intolerable. Fan, pan. Obviously, it is fan. Look at the pronunciation of fan. Fur is a labiodental sound and fur is a bilabial sound. Many of the Indian speakers have got the problem of pronouncing fur, which is a labiodental sound. The upper teeth and the lower lip should come closer to each other in the pronunciation of it. Make it look like a bilabial pronunciation, pan. So it is not pan, it is fan. So be very particular when you are developing the listening and speaking skills with respect to the pronunciation part of it and the comprehension part of it. The dash is very sweet. Colonel. Colonel is military cadre. And kernel. Kernel is the inside sweet part of a hard fruit, just like you have the kernel of a coconut. So in this, because it is very sweet, I think kernel goes better. Colonel also goes if you want to appreciate the colonel's character or personality or whatever. He's very sweet. Something like that. John dashed this great painting. D-I-D did. D-double-E-D did. D-I-D did is to make. So John did this great painting is more appropriate. He dash come tomorrow. S-H-E-L-L shall, as you found in the tongue twister of shell. S-H-A-L-L shall, that's the helping verb. In this example, S-H-A-L-L, the helping verb comes and not shall. It's very important that we maintain the pronunciation part of it properly, the spellings of it properly, so that we get the appropriate meaning that we want to express. The third technique of developing the listening skill is listen and mark. So this paper is given to you. Imagine that this paper is given to you and I'm reading out. Mark the colors against the right boxes in the space that is provided. Supposing I say the green box is the biggest. So you paint green color for the listening to the instructions, you'll have to do it. The blue box is big, but the yellow box is bigger than the blue box. The black box is the smallest. Of the two black boxes that are smallest, the upper one is grayish and the lower one is black. Could you understand? Now, while developing the listening skills and examples like this, it's only once read. Maybe a second time it could be read, and that's it. You'll have to mark it. For examinations like TOEFL and IELTS, it is in this way that you'll be tested for listening skill. Whether you can listen to whatever has been spoken in front of you, follow it and mark it and color it. Grid is a very beautiful technique of developing the listening skill. This is a chess board, in fact, right? So we can ask a number of questions based upon this. How many squares are there with the borders of all the four borders are red in color? So you can immediately count and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 21, right? Now you identify as to how many are there. Now the question can be changed. How many squares are there in the chessboard which have two sides with a red border and two sides with a blue border? To complicate the things, two sides with a red border, two sides with a with a blue border, and gray checks and white checks. So you can alternatively ask the questions in order to complicate the things so that they would understand and pick up. Move 7 matches to have 4 squares. So you have to listen and you have to move only 7 matchsticks in order to make 4 complete squares. Or increase the complexity of it, not squares but rectangles also, sometimes triangles also. Now, such type of interesting way of developing the listening comprehension could be by using these techniques. The grid game is one of the best games that I have ever found that students would listen and pick up. 5 body parts above your shoulders with the correct gender. Now, in English, we don't have this gender problem for the body parts. Like above the shoulders, you can say 2 eyes, 2 ears, nose, forehead, cheeks, chin, hair, neck. List 10 sporting activities: Kho-Kho, Kabaddi, cricket, badminton, tennis, table tennis, football, volleyball, throwball, gymnastics. Name 3 things that are connected to your leg: ankle, feet, thighs, knees. What should someone who is overweight do to lose weight? You could say diet, foot control, exercises, yoga and pranayama, walking, etc. Outline 3 ways to remain healthy. Proper diet, exercise, and little yoga and pranayama will help you. A little complicated things is explain what type of lifestyle you and your family lead and why. So lifestyle, you could talk about your routine and when do you get up and what do you exactly do in the house and so on. So I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and then do some yoga, do some pranayama, and then do some reading part, record my lectures, and then have bath and do some puja, then etc. etc. So narrate it. You are at the doctor's surgery with the multiple problems. Talk about it in detail. Imagine that somebody is a doctor, A is a doctor, and B is a patient, and start explaining. Doctor should ask the questions related to doctor, as what a doctor asks, and the patient should be answering it as if the patient is suffering. So, such type of describe your neighbor's, dog or pet, or describe your neighbor's personality. All these are the grid games. So whichever comes, whichever page opens on the grid, you automatically ask. The other person has to listen to it very carefully and respond. So it is listening skill always is associated with the speaking skill as well. You listen to whatever has been asked or said and you respond in terms of listening. This is also a grid game. A grid of this sort is already made by me. You could make it also accordingly. And listen to it. Radha and Ramani study in Standard 12. Radha likes her school subjects and loves studying, but she hates games. Ramani, on the other hand, loves playing Kho-Kho and Kabaddi. She likes English but doesn't like maths. So, whichever Radha likes, tick and cross. Whichever Ramani likes, tick and cross the things that are not liked by. So, Radha likes her school subjects, which mean that she loves studying, so maths and English are appreciated by her. She hates games, so under games you put an into cross. Ramani, on the other hand loves playing Kho-Kho. So games, yes. And Kabaddi. So games, yes. She likes English. English, yes, but maths into. And then again ask your companion, whoever has marked the rights and wrongs, to read it out. So Radha likes maths and English but doesn't like games. She doesn't play games. She loves studying. Ramani, on the other hand, likes to play games. She plays Kho and Kabaddi. She also likes English but doesn't like maths. So you have listened to it, marked it, and looking at the grid, you can also speak up. It is automatically a practice for listening skill as well as speaking skill. A very beautiful way to make people speak is using the family tree. Like you're starting from your grandparents or great grandparents if you have, then your grandparents who are three in number with their respective spouses and their families, then their children, that is your parents and cousins and uncles and aunts, and then their children, that is your cousins. In what way each is related to other. A number of questions can be asked, and if you remember your mathematics textbooks of third, fourth, fifth, sixth standards, many such questions were asked in terms of relationships, in terms of family tree, and so on and so forth. These are some very beautiful ways of making them listen very carefully and responding. And this is one way of making them pick up the language. Timetables, reading the timetable. So give them a timetable, a railway timetable or a bus station timetable or airport station or a normal timetable of your own class and ask them to read it out. So from 8 to 8:30 on Mondays you have Hindi, on Tuesday you have maths, on Wednesday you have moral science, and Thursdays you have mathematics again. Then on Friday you have games, and on Saturday you have maths. And you have lunch break every day between 10:15 and 10:40. And in the last period, 12:35 to 1 o'clock on Wednesday, what is the period? Science. So on Thursday, between 9:10 and 9:40, what class was going on? Sanskrit class was going on. So in that way, you can ask questions so that they would read the timetable properly and respond. It would improve the listening skill as well as the speaking skill. You can also complicate the things, and you could say that on Monday, how many subjects does the student study? And how many times do you think that Hindi subject is prescribed per week? So in that way also we can, general knowledge, how many times do you think that the GK subject is repeated in the entire week? Or on Tuesday, where on Tuesday, when does the child have a GK, at what time? So a number of questions can be invented and can be asked. For all these interactions, the student has to be very carefully listening to it, following the timetable that is given to him, and answering. Similarly are the filling of the bank forms. Students like going to college like you, where opening a bank account is a must. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers which are red in color. Did you notice? So you can ask, what do you think that it comes at 1? It talks about Shakha or branch. So it is the Shivaji Nagar branch. So somebody, you give this slip to 3 different people. One will be asking the question, the other will be answering, the third will be writing. Thereby, integration of skills is properly maintained. Similarly, date, and then the account number, which is normally of 10 digit. Then the money that comes in the fourth blank in terms of rupees and paise. And then in words, it's very important that we should learn to write the numbers in words with units, tens, hundreds, thousand, 10,000, lakh, 10 lakh, crores, 10 crores, and so on and so forth. It's very unfortunate that many students actually write their numbers, the roll numbers, in the examination format. Supposing it is 5,26,307 is the number. So they would be writing 527,307. Now that is not the writing of the number in words. You should write 5,27,307. So you should know how to write the digit in words also and practice it for that. Biodata forms are another interesting ways in which we can make them pick up the listening skill. Such forms can be given to students, and you can make them into 2 groups and ask the first group to ask the question and the second group to fill it up. Or make them into 3 groups, or 3 students have to be called for role play. One will be reading the question, the other will be answering, and the third will be writing it on the board. So the first will be name, and how do you write your name, with the surname first or with the first name first or whatever. Then your father's name, gender, what is to be written, date of birth. Now, this is to be practiced literally in the classroom uh, with the timetables and with the biodata forms and various other forms, bank forms and all, because these are practically important for us for the practical purposes. Nowadays, mobile number and email ID also are must, and it's not fake email or fake mobile or your brother's mobile or your father's email ID that you give, but you are supposed to have the email ID. You are supposed to have your own phone number, with the help of which connectivity becomes much easier. Then you have another technique of developing the listening skills, like reading, reading the dialogues. What are you doing for your cold and fever? Well, my doctor has prescribed a course of antibiotics. He says that the only way I can manage to take classes. Antibiotics? Oh no, that's the last thing to have. Have you tried drinking a glass of warm milk with a pinch of haldi? It really helps. The best remedy is ginger. Nothing like ginger. Just soak some whole ginger in a glass of water and strain it, and then somebody says, I think honey is much better. A spoonful of honey in lime juice every morning. My sister in law had a very interesting cure for blocknosis. She used to burn one end of the turmeric root and take in the fumes. It worked each time, she said. I think some positive thinking also can do wonders. Just tell yourself that you're absolutely fine, you're going to be good, and you will be. Oh, this beautiful dialogue is written by Poili Sengupta, one of my favorite dramatists who lives in Madras. So you can make use of dialogues and ask them to take their roles, ask them to play their roles and read up their dialogues and add something into these dialogues also, with the help of which learning language will become very interesting in terms of skill development of listening, speaking. Flow charts is another very beautiful way of representing and reading out. Lamp doesn't work. So what do? First of all, lamp is plugged in or not, you will check. If it is no, plug in the lamp and the lamp will be burnt. If it is yes, then you'll have to see bulb burned out. If it is yes, replace the bulb. If it is no, repair the lamp. So it's such a beautiful flow chart, and these flow charts could be read out by the teacher or by one student, and the second student will be marking it out in terms of flow diagrams or flow charts. Maps are some very beautiful ways in which you pick up the listening skill. This is the map of Maharashtra. So the yellow color is Amravati region. So Amravati has got Amravati, Akola, Buldhana, Washim and Yavatmal. The green is Nagpur region with Wardha, Nagpur, Gadchiroli, Chandrapur, Gondia and Bhandara. The purple color is Nashik region with Dhule, Jalgaon, Nashik, Ahmednagar and Nandurbar. The red is Konkan region with Thane and Raigad and others. The blue is the Pune region, Pune, Satara, Solapur, Sangli and Kolhapur. And the orange is Aurangabad region, our region, Aurangabad, Jalna, Beed, Osmanabad, Latur, Nanded, Hingoli and Parbhani. So you ask any type of questions. Once this map is read out, you ask any type of question as to what are the neighboring parts of Aurangabad. So you could say Jalgaon, Nasik, Ahmednagar, Jalna, and Beed. So in that way, listen and speak. This is the map of Nanded city. So you have the airport station on one hand, you have a railway station on the other, you have bus stand at the third place, and Swami Ramanand Tirth Marathwada University on the last. So you could get the map in front of your eyes and ask the questions as to from Marathwada University, Nanded, how would you go to the airport station? Or we have got down from the bus stand and you want to go to the university, how will you go? Or you have got down from the railway station and you want to go to Gurudwara, and what is the route? Reading the charts and listening to the charts is again a very interesting way of developing the listening skill along with almost all the other skills. This chart below shows information about the problems people have when they go to live in other countries. The thing that is marked in blue is they make friends very easily. Purple is they try to move away to different places every now and then because they are not comfortable with people. And the orange color is with respect to the picking up of the local language. Now, once this chart is read out, show them the chart and then ask the questions like, in which age group do you find that learning the language is very easy? Or in which age group making friends is very easy? And so on and so forth. So they listen to you and they respond. Stories are some beautiful ways in which you can pick up every skill of a language. I have here incorporated a very beautiful story of the ant and the grasshopper. Now, these stories can be said half, and the rest is to be imagined by the students. What can be done? Or the entire story can be said, and you can ask the students to repeat. You can play a game of storytelling where every student will be contributing to every sentence and taking the story further. And by the time the class ends, the entire story should be set up. Or you can read out the story, make them listen, and ask them as to what could be the moral of it, what could be the title of it. There are some beautiful ways in which you can make them listen and pick. Anecdotes are wonderful complements for stories. Anecdotes are examples from your own life. So when I was in seventh standard, we had a science teacher who used to explain all the scientific terms of the text with all illustrations and from practical examples. Since then, I really was interested in science and I wanted to take up science subject in my college and wanted to become a science teacher like her. We have a number of anecdotes and stories coming out near the fire camp. And all these could be very beautiful ways of developing the listening skill as well as the speaking skill. Newspaper articles could be one beautiful ways in which you can develop or improve the listening skill. Read out the newspaper headlines and ask them to guess what exactly has happened, or if anybody else has read it and so come out of it. Or ask them to identify what the headline is, what the dateline is, what the introductory paragraph is, and so on. TV telecast or radio broadcast are some interesting ways of making them listen and pick up the language. Now, this could be the news items, or this could be the films, this could be the songs, English songs if you're picking up English language, or Korean songs if you're picking up Korean language. For anything, TV telecasts and radio broadcasts are helpful for you to pick up the language very efficiently and train you for developing the listening skills. If all these are the various techniques that we can follow for improving the listening skill, of course, along with listening skill, the speaking skill also is impoverished. The factors that are affecting the listening comprehension, three important factors could be there. One is a linguistic factor. Sometimes vocabulary is difficult, or the pronunciation of the speaker is very difficult, or understanding of the homonyms and homophones. As we said, bank, shooting, and all this, you have two meanings, and sometimes it becomes difficult for us to understand. The only way to the only way to come out of this linguistic factor and linguistic problem is to get yourself acquainted with more and more of language, listening to it more, referring to the dictionaries and trying to improve your vocabulary, and so on and so forth. Sometimes physical factors could be affecting the comprehension, like environmental interference, like the noise or the crowd, or technological disturbance, like the interference in a radio broadcast or a telephone network. These could be the problems affecting the listening comprehension. Physical factors, we just have to wait and see that these physical factors fade away, and then you could start using the language. Psychological factors could be another which is affecting the listening comprehension. A person is already preoccupied in other thoughts, privileges and prejudices of a person, lack of interest of the topic, impatience, all these could be the psychological factors. Now, these psychological factors are to be controlled by the respective person. Uh, Never be preoccupied with another thoughts whenever you are listening to something, either a TV telecast or a news broadcast or listening to the speaker. Always be with an open mind, with no privileges and prejudices against any person, and develop interest in the topic and have patience to listen to it till the end so that you could understand better. So, linguistic factors, to avoid them, are in our hands. We can pick up the language. We should take interest in picking it up. Psychological factors, yes, we could overcome because these also are in our hand. Physical factors are not in our hand. We could just see that the environmental interferences pass by and then we can come down to the picking up of the language. The guidelines for effective listening: remove all your physical and psychological distractions and listen to the speaker appropriately. Empathize with the speaker and carefully listen to understand rather than to oppose. Develop the verbal and non-verbal listening abilities and listen with an open mind. Appreciate the speaker's view, whereupon the speaker would be put to ease. We could have a number of barriers while listening, like the listener thinks he or she knows more than the speaker. Sometimes the listener is stressed and is filled because physical and psychological pressures. Sometimes the listener is anxious to express his or her own thoughts even before the speaker completes. The listener is prejudiced about the speaker, or many a times the other person, the speaker, is confused himself or herself. The speaker uses technical jargon while explaining it. The speaker is not effective in communicating the ideas. The speaker uses words open to many interpretations, and maybe there are external disturbances also. But we can avoid these barriers from the listener's point of view. As we said, physical and psychological pressures are to be kept aside, and with an open mind, one needs to listen effectively. And the speaker needs to have an effective communication skills of communicating his or her own ideas for a clear message to be communicated. The external disturbances could be avoided with the passing of time. The characteristics of a good listener are that a good listener should be proficient in the language in which communication is taking place. If it is Hindi he should know, Marathi or English, or any other language. A good listener should follow the speaker very carefully. Listening is an art, and you have to listen very carefully whatever the speaker is speaking for a proper understanding. A good listener should clarify the meanings from the speaker immediately. If at all he is not able to follow anything, any word or any expression, immediately it should be clarified so that further it would not become a hindrance. A good listener knows to interpret the sentence in the context. And a good listener is he who is knowledgeable, confident, patient, and attentive. Always listen for understanding at 100%. The listener should be actively involved in the listening activity, is never over anxious, and is not in a hurry to know what the speaker says, or interrupt in the middle and complete even before the speaker completes. A good listener is patient, calm, and positive, and he is one who involves actively in listening and is critical about what he listens to. He uses various strategies to overcome the barriers, the physical, psychological, as well as environmental. So, in conclusion, listen always to understand. Ask deeper questions. Avoid any interruptions whenever somebody else is speaking. Withhold judgments. Train your mind, don't be distracted. Slow down with patience and with silence. Take the nonverbal cues also that are expressed by the speaker so that you can listen to understand. Learn to listen well. Listen to learn well. Both are connected. When you listen and learn, you are automatically motivated self and you can inspire others, become a coach, and evolve as a leader. Thank you very much for having a patient listening to this video, which is on techniques of developing the listening skills. Bye for now. Stay tuned for the next videos.